Okay.
Warming up?
My smile felt uncomfortable. It was too so then I
Yeah,
had
I
to
know
hold
the
it.
feeling. And the house smells like steak.
We should do your thumbnail now while there's
Mm,
like no people.
okay.
What professionalism we demonstrate. State of the art techniques for running this show.
Mhm.
Okay, Toby, explain.
If any of you are watching right now, this is a recorded live stream. That means the show will officially start in a few minutes. We can't see if you're watching, so just drop in a comment and we will know you're there and add you in the show. If you're watching in the future, this was a recorded live stream, which means jump forward to the start of the show or send in comments anyway, and we'll love to read them afterwards. We'll be starting in a few minutes as we manually reshare our link.
Sorry, I got a very unusual Facebook group suggestion
I
for like
saw, I
workout
saw.
people. And like, what the
I
hell?
say add it anyway.
No, no, I don't need that in my feed. If my job did not involve Facebook and potentially screen sharing while viewing
Oh,
Facebook
I have a tracking number.
from the vow. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh, I have a fragile package.
Oh, but it's GNT.
Yeah. So we'll be starting in a few minutes.
Yeah, we're just doing all the fun tagging things and like getting people to join because, of course, a live stream is not as fun without like actual people watching to interact with. Although, like we totally still do the show without an audience. We
Mhm.
have, I think, on occasion, like, or at least there's an audience, but nobody was saying anything. We just kept going, and we'll try to put on a good show. But yeah, no worries. Okay.
Okay, I can see the feed in Facebook. No denying how silver my hair has gone.
Mm.
Now, I used to wonder when I was younger if I'd ever have that salt and pepper realness, or if I'd be one of those who would just lose my hair.
Oh, well, given my family history, I always figured I'd lose my hair.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I'm holding against hope.
And
Like,
I knew
don't go
relatives
here.
who went through that. Wherein from black it was like fleeing. It didn't reach white
Don't
anymore.
leave me here.
Oh my god, that's a terrible thumbnail of me.
Well, it's a board game episode, so that means you will actually take the time to craft a custom thumbnail. The Facebook one looks okay.
Yeah, I actually should make more thumbnail images for the other episodes.
Yeah, like when we have magical time given back to us to do all these things.
I have been considering that, and I've been weighing with the possibility of going down to once a week just
Mm.
to give us time to catch up and map out episodes and get back some time because there's so much more.
But yeah, but it's like I feel kind of sad if like we didn't do this at least more than once a week.
I
Like
know,
I enjoy I still enjoy this. I still enjoy this.
I know, but you know,
I know, but yeah, work has been admittedly heavy for both of us. Um, so yeah, and then and then a whole bunch of games arrived
mm,
this week, which is like storage is a continuing problem, and
mm,
then when to find time to play all these games. And then even weird things like a bunch of new RPGs have arrived for us.
yeah,
Hard, actual printed editions of RPGs, which I'm very excited.
and I sort of wanna start doing other stuff uh, after office hours.
Mm, mm. And then I mean, oh my god, I have my full set for the root RPG. I'll take a photo later and like Instagram that stuff because
Mhm.
it's gorgeous and there's so many things and it comes with its own bag. What is it?
Nope. Just double checking if I should share it in the solo group because I'm part of a solo board gaming group.
Yeah, that's not gonna be the
So
case for this
sometimes
one. I mean, it's a rally race game, so then it really benefits from.
But it has the purple enemy, which we'll talk about later. So I was kind of thinking maybe they'll still work for solo.
Hmm.
See, but
Check the forums. Maybe
yeah,
someone.
unofficial
Although
maybe.
it's like weird. I don't know if someone would take the time to set
Maybe I should.
solo rules for this.
There's just Spanish translations of the rules. All right, I think it's good enough for us to start.
All right.
We've long accepted that now that the pandemic is easing up, many of our regular viewers now choose to watch in their own free time. So they just load the episode.
Or sadly, like are now commuting home
Yeah.
from work.
But I've noticed our listener hits are still
The
hitting the
same.
same
Yeah,
levels,
yeah, yeah.
despite not seeing people online as
We
often.
don't see the live views. We see the in
And
perpetuity kind
we
of
we still
views.
appreciate all the support. We do miss the comments. So yeah, let's
Okay.
get this show started.
Yeah. So we'll be right back.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. I was about to say listening to us. It's a Tuesday, and we talk about games, and obviously, we are talking about a board game, which we first saw.
And got jealous of.
Yeah, and wait, we first saw it, and then we learned that a friend of ours had it, so we got to
Okay,
try it.
maybe you saw it. I didn't see it.
You sure?
Yes.
Was
So it was at that game night was the first time I knew it. I
Oh,
found out
okay.
it existed. So I don't know about you regularly skimming game forums, but yes, we're talking about Wacky Races, the board game.
wacky races?
All right. Then it was designed by Andrea Chiarvesio and Fabio Tola for Simon
Mm-hmm.
Global Limited. So it's a licensed game, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
it is not a re-implementation of any other game, which is actually. But I'm always impressed when like people come up with new original game ideas
Yes.
for. I mean, no shade to re-implementations,
Yes.
but
It's
that's
very.
cool.
It's always interesting
But
when
this
they
is the extra
find
step.
when they
Yeah,
find a unique way to express a game mechanic or to express a brand through game mechanics. In wacky races, players are in the driver's seat as they take control of their favorite drivers from the cartoon series. These include the Slag Brothers, the Gruesome Twosome, Penelope Pitstop, Peter Perfect, and more, each with their own car that has its own special abilities. They compete against each other as well as the game controlled Dick Dastardly and the Wheezy Pup Muttley.
so it's funny. Okay, what is Wacky Races? Many people especially like more contemporary
Mhm.
viewers, may not be familiar with the franchise, but it is a 1968 animated TV series by
Yes.
Hanna-Barbera. One of those classic Saturday morning thing. It was sort of inspired by the 1965 comedy The Great Race,
Hmm.
and basically it was always like these same 11 cars racing in different locations around the world. But I don't know why. I used to think that, like, my gosh, there are so many episodes of this show. How am I ever
Yes.
going to see them? In fact, there are only 17. There are only 17, and each episode consisted of two separate races. So
Hmm.
that's a total of 34 races ever in the life of this cartoon. But I don't know, as a kid, it always felt like there were so many races and so many stories.
Well,
Um,
Wacky Races on IMDb is listed as
34 because it's the
yes,
34 segments.
yes.
So, but in terms of release, it
Hmm.
was two races at a time
Hmm.
per episode, and you'll see that it's slashed on IMDb. So
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person who, like, when I stumbled across things like the Wacky Races handbook at a secondhand shop, I'm like, oh my god, I totally want to get this. And yeah, for the curious, um, if I remember right with this book, um, it documents every single race,
Mm.
and then it had the stats of who won, and then you may have your impressions of who used to win the most. In fact, it was fairly even. It's
Mhm.
like the win stats were not that diverse. Okay.
So let's talk about the game. In the game, players strategically place different terrain tiles in order, sorry, to place based on terrain tiles cards that they will use to try to move through the race. While their vehicles have special abilities, a large part of the game is deciding how much you'll go forward or how far you'll try to move ahead because there are certain rules that make it interesting. The game uses hand management, a modular board, a take that mechanic. It's basically pretty much a race and has variable player powers as you all go through races that last around 10 to 15 minutes long.
It's actually quite quick. I mean, like, and we are. I think for the longest time, our main like racing game board game in our collection
Mhm.
has been Steampunk Rally,
Yes.
which actually is quite long a game because there's a building component and a
Yes.
racing component,
Yes.
and then ongoing building that you're
Mhm.
constantly adding to your machines. In this one, you have fixed machines. You have a dynamic track, so the
Mhm.
layout is never exactly the same, um, and it makes for an interesting sort of mode of play. Uh, but it is rated for ages 14 and up. I think, well, because there are still some game mechanics that require a bit of reading, a bit of understanding of things, and I think that's the main concern why there's an age recommendation. But in terms of content, it's totally family friendly. So if you've
Mhm.
ever seen an episode, excuse me, of Wacky Races, it never gets crazier than that.
Beyond just possibly mechanics, we have to talk about the figures. Let's open the box.
That's the main thing. That's like at first I'm like, really a Wacky Races game? I mean, do I really need a Wacky Races
You
game?
have your manual, a
But
sing.
that's the quick start.
Yeah, you have your quick start manual, a single sheet that is nicely illustrated, helps you learn the rules real quick. Then you have the rule book, full colored with nice detail and
But it's still
information.
not that long rule book.
And then you have a nicely packed box.
Yeah, so they went for these full printed figures for all the ships, all the cars,
Mhm.
and um, it's not a cheap print. It's not a cheap like 3D print style. I don't know, and they're quite heavy
Wait, let's take
actually.
out the plastic cover just so
Yeah,
we can see them a bit more.
yeah. Let me get that up. Okay.
Yeah, look at that. Look at
So they
that.
don't exactly come painted. I mean, like, so each is like
Ah!
I knew it was gonna happen. Okay. Each is like comes in its own color mold. So of course, Penelope Pitstop's car is pink, and then there are very limited details in terms of just the number of her car and the letter W always to mark that
Mhm.
they are in the Wacky Races. Um,
Okay, let's put them here.
it's unique colors per figure, so you will have minor frustrations like Peter Perfect's car is in terms of the stock one is entirely white when you know that his car is supposed to have decals like a nice racing car. And if you want to kind of, we can pull up their actual references. So like oh, it doesn't help because my handbook, what's this, likes to depict the cars in blueprint mode. So if you look at like the mean machine of Dick Dastardly, then I just have a blueprint of it. Okay.
But I guess it's easy
It's
to
a close
cite
enough match.
that
Yeah.
for each one you have beautifully detailed figures. Um, there's a lot of gorgeous detail that sadly the camera can't capture. There's of course the stickers that help represent the branding of Wacky Races. A small sticker representing the number of the vehicle. Of course, this one's five. Some of them look, you know, impressively intricate the way they do in the cartoon,
Because Patent Band
but they kept it.
is Inventicart
But they
works.
kept it stationary figures. It's not There's no moving parts. The wheels don't turn. It's not. It's not something you could play with like a toy, which I guess is both pros and cons. It's
Hey,
for me.
anything
It's
could
a
be a toy if you push it.
Yeah, for me it's a pro because you then don't have the risk of, oh, the wheel flew off and now my piece is destroyed.
Yeah,
But
there
it
are
is a
some break
con.
risks. There are some break
It
risks.
is also a con because you kind of do still
Toby
wish there
just wants
was
moving wheels.
anything moving. I mean,
You want
Forbidden series, we're looking at you. You spoiled us with little things that move.
you want the dragon on the horror card. Yeah. So the models are great, and then in terms of the game, so each player gets a specific player board, and then I realized, wow, it's super in style with like my handbook
Mm-hmm.
because everything is depicted again as blueprints. The player board is not actually necessary, but all it does is that it gives you a place to put the four power cards associated to each
Mm-hmm.
character. So, as is the nature of the wacky races, each car is has certain special abilities,
Mm-hmm.
and the the player guide blueprint is your guide to sort of where they are, but you have the corresponding card that you place it on, and then as you use powers, you flip the cards over to show they're exhausted. Although there will be situations where you can sort of reactivate a power
Mm-hmm.
for one more use. And then you're thinking, what? So of the four powers, you can only use each once in the game, practically. Generally true, but the game runs so fast. There are cases where you may not use all
Mm-hmm.
your powers, which feels weird.
Cards usually have the description of the power fitting in the card. The descriptions are also
No, they're not
um,
printed on the board.
yeah.
They just have the name of each power and the card text will be as a blank
Mhm.
box. So you still need the cards, which is okay. It's okay. It was a bit of a choice in terms of those components.
A second deck of cards represent the different terrains that you could visit when you are traveling. These range in color and artwork to match with the terrain tiles. Let's show the terrain tiles.
Yeah. So you have your starting board first, which is always this one, and you'll notice that the start line is on the end, and then there's something else here. So in typical like, if you watch things like Formula One or other races, you have to have that beginning where all the cars are waiting to go. So this is sort of the layout where you put all the cars, and you'll put them in an alternating manner.
Mhm.
So the funny thing about the game is that you don't put them on the tiles.
Yes.
They're always
Above or below.
above or below. So they're always per terrain tile. There are two valid spaces for a car to be, and at the beginning of the race, they're gonna kind of alternate
Mhm.
and get ready to go.
The rest of the track is built using these track tiles. They're showcasing different terrain types, and they're made in this weird shape in order to help you see the direction of where you're going.
It's actually a very subtle design choice. Although I will admit, for the terrain stuff, very thin cardboard. Um, may not be picked up on camera, but there are different colors on the back. So one is more blue, and one is more orange in terms of border,
Mhm.
because they represent what should be in the first half of the race versus what's in the second half of the race. And I'm sure that there is some game design reason for needing to divide it.
Certain
So
things are more frequent at the
yes,
later part.
yes. Plus, there are a few unique tiles that don't match the basic terrain types. Yeah. So in terms of play, and we'll get to that. So what will happen is that uh, everybody will have three terrain cards typically,
Mhm.
um, and they represent the terrain that you can travel.
Mhm.
And suddenly I can't remember. Are we matching the tile you're on or the tile you're going to? The quick guide might be the easiest option. Let me hold this for you.
That's it.
Okay.
So
Boom.
that's the setup there. So each player may play a movement card to move one space. They may
You
play a second card if that matches
the current
the
terrain.
current terrain they're on.
Yeah. So it's funny, but I guess to keep the race motif is that so every turn you're guaranteed to move one space on the
Yes.
board, because whatever you discard as your first card, it will let you move forward.
Mhm.
And then for your second card, and second and potentially third, you need to match the terrain you are on,
Mhm.
which is totally random because it's based on the cards in your hand that you had carried over from the last turn.
But
But
it nicely captures that narrative that some people might be able to travel certain areas faster. You might have luck on your side.
Mhm.
You might be able to plan things out because let's say you have three green cards and you're looking at the terrain. Your first move is free, and then the next one is green, so you know you can move two steps. But then, if let's say you have a mix of cards and one of them's the useless card, then you make sure that's what you spend for your first step, so you can move three steps.
Yeah, so you just need to pay attention to where you can go, and then since we did mention that each slot has two spaces, one above and below, if it is fully occupied, you get to skip
Hmm.
to jump to the next space because there's no more valid placement for your
Yes.
vehicles. So that core movement mechanic is what drives the game, haha. But it's simple enough to be easily grasped, and then the powers come in because the powers can do anything from uh, maybe let you change your entire hand of cards,
Hmm.
draw extra cards, or do direct things to other characters.
Yes.
Because it is still a race, you are trying to push forward. The other quirky mechanic of the game, because of course the question would inevitably come out: can you race as Dick Dastardly? He has a distinct vehicle, but he is not a playable character. So the funny thing about the terrain, like we mentioned, that you don't place your vehicles on the cards themselves, is because that is Dick Dastardly's track,
Hmm.
and he has a fun. So he is an antagonist figure against everyone, and basically he will reveal cards from the terrain deck and then move accordingly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't follow normal movement rules.
So he
He will,
doesn't count steps.
yeah, he
At,
moves to that next
at the start
terrain.
of
Mm.
the round, he is at the last position. So as everyone moves, when his turn comes in, you draw a card, and whatever that is, he jumps all the way to that position. He can leap forward more steps than expected. However, that doesn't mean he always wins.
Yeah, so every time, it is only every time he takes position one in the game, is that he then you then get to draw a card from the trap deck for
Hmm.
Dick Dastardly. And
That's
that,
right.
of course, is themed to him with Dick Dastardly and Muttley on the back. You do not look at the card, you place it face down on the terrain tile that Dick Dastardly reached, and then he runs all the way to the back. He
Hmm.
runs behind the last player.
Hmm.
So it's funny, but it matches that narrative of him zooming ahead, setting a trap, and then kind of getting waylaid because he set a trap.
And then you sort of imagine Muttley laughing as you're flying back.
Yeah, and then so now the next player to hit that spot with the trap must deal with it,
Hmm.
and typically your player powers will include an ability to deal with maybe up to two of the types of traps, but then
Hmm.
there are many types of traps. So, for example, um, so like, and they have icons to represent. So this one, if you're gonna get hit by a log, so you'll move back two tiles. But if you're, for example, most likely the lumberjack guy, sorry, I can't remember his name, um, would be able to deal with wood, then he can skip it.
Yes.
And then there's like a bomb, there is mud, and all these other classic Dick Dastardly things. So, your player vehicle, each player card will probably have the ability to deal with two types of traps. And then that's it.
The game also requires you to have a total of 6 racers on the board, regardless of how many
Yes.
players are playing. So if there's only 2 of you, you actually fill the racetrack with 4 neutral players. And while this might sound weird, that okay, so we're dealing with a lot of other things because we're just playing, you'll realize it works because it does allow you to leapfrog forward whenever others are in the way, or it allows you to use certain things better. So it's a nice design touch that keeps everything nicely balanced.
Yeah, because it kind of wouldn't be a super exciting, wacky race if you
Hmm.
didn't have other players. The only downside is that there are no rules for the neutral racers to use their powers.
Yes.
So they just occupy slots on the game, which kind of help you leapfrog forward if
Hmm.
needed. Um, and it can complicate things because then maybe they are occupying a tile that you had a matching terrain card for, and instead you don't get to move as much because that slot is not available.
Now the quick sheet offers championship rules, and the championship rules basically has is the rules that's offered for people who are more experienced with the game or for people who are just more experienced with board games in general. Here you choose up to one of the 4 championship tours,
Seasonals.
which
Mhm.
then determines how you gain points with each race.
Yeah,
And through the progression of these races, you keep a record of your scores. Most accumulated points wins the race.
and then each seasonal championship thing will have like special conditions. For example, in the spring championship, all racers will have a hand size of 4 instead of 3, so they can all move a lot quicker.
Mhm.
Versus, um, in the summer championship, because it is by roller coaster to ups and downs, then there are four traps that are immediately placed on the board
Mhm.
at random locations. So they are different way. They set up different starting conditions for the game, and then tournament style scoring based on how you place, and then you can kind of figure out the overall winner based on that, and it will still by right what now extend your game to maybe up to 2 hours for the whole championship leg or
Mm.
something. Well, I don't know. I'm miscomputing. Um, 20, 40. No, probably about an hour and 20. Sorry, about an hour and 20 minutes if you play all four seasons at once. And that's not bad at all. The game plays very quickly, it resets very quickly. You'll probably spend more time taking pictures of your race
Mhm.
than running the race, especially because the figures are so cute.
Or doing something as stupid as me balancing the wall in your hand. Um, the box, as mentioned, there's inserts. The inserts are labeled with numbers to help you place which racer goes where back together. Um, so I'm mixed feelings about quality because we have beautiful figures, but they don't go all the way. We have beautiful inserts, but they also don't go all the way.
Well, they're beautiful, but they're thin. Like
Mhm.
it's not the best plastic I've encountered for an insert. You have an interesting modular tile system, but again, very thin card
Mm-mm.
stock. I think it's ironic that I think it's the player cards that are slightly thicker. Not by much. Sorry, no, I was wrong in
Mm-mm.
my recall. So the card, it's like other things felt very bare minimum, and I've kind of seen this sometimes from Simon games, but then it helps it come out at a competitive price point. I
Mm.
understand the reason for this, but because I guess it's such a nostalgia play to have a game based on this old cartoon, kind of hope that there was maybe a collector's edition that levels things up further or something, but
Mhm.
it's hard to say because ultimately they wanted to design a family friendly game and they figured their market would involve more kids, even though majority of the people who watch this cartoon are probably in their 30s and 40s at this point. um, Such is the way of capitalist progress. Okay, but I super love. Okay, the cars alone are just super cute. Okay,
Mhm.
in terms of actual gameplay, um, it's surprisingly fun.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly fun. And I was worried. I mean, I was in the same camp. I was pretty skeptical that it's going to be a very kiddie game. It's going to be overly simple. Um, but the Dick Dastardly trap engine is hilarious
Mhm.
because you see him zipping back and forward in the race, and um, there, it is even possible for Dick Dastardly to zoom off the map
Yes.
before anyone else, and then he stops laying traps for the rest of the game.
Mhm.
But he still doesn't get counted as the winner because he didn't stop. Hey
Mhm.
Mitch. Yeah, um and then the player powers, again, a little simplistic on the simplistic side. They're very easy to understand, but they work out pretty well. And I think each nicely captures some of the feel of each character.
I do feel sad that in terms of design, they committed one of the cardinal rules, um, cardinal sins when it comes to making the rules of your game, and that is the player powers are not referenced in the manual.
Mm.
There should have been a few pages for each of the characters and their powers listed, both as a reference, so you might not be playing that character, but then you could look at the manual to see what they do. Or to the very least, if the cards get damaged in any way, you could have at least had a backup for what those things do.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't even hurt. Like they could have just had them
Yes.
on the player boards.
So it
It's
seems
weird.
like it was a missed opportunity to make sure that it was a bit more useful. Given you already had player boards which supposedly had illustrations of each power, this could have been a moment where the card had some sort of play to it. Maybe it's a blueprint. Maybe the cards were blueprint side and colored side.
And then I kind of wish the back had more. I
Mm,
mean, like, cause the player boards all have the standard back. When instead, I kind of wanted, I don't know, a beauty shot of each character,
yes.
right? Like the a nice color shot of the car, like mid race. Because instead, we have only the blueprint shot, and then we
Mhm.
don't get to see the cars as they were. Um, And then actually, when you drill down to it, the player powers actually are almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
They have different names on each character,
Mm-hmm.
but there's typically one that lets you like replace your hand.
Yeah.
There's the one that lets you deal with two types of traps, one that lets you move forward somehow. But there are some slight variations, but it's like there are super common powers across all that don't necessarily make each player feel that unique. It's a good attempt. It's a good attempt, and there are some powers that you can totally understand how it's gonna go. Like I think the um, which one was that? Bu- 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 bum. Um, because yeah, because the headlines don't really tell you anything. Because like, so Penelope Pitstop's powers are clever girl, bright headlights, can't fool me, and charmed life.
Mm-hmm.
I think I there because like the army surplus special, I kind of like the powers here because it made more sense. So full steam ahead was you moving forward.
Yeah.
Barrage fire was something like you can knock someone back and things like that.
But
So,
then you had some weird ones. So like for Rufus and Sawtooth, they had Buzzsaw, which does what? It's discard 3 cards and draw a new set of cards.
which is the standard like reset your hand
And then there's
power.
Master Rebuilder, which kind of sounded like a better name for what you just did, right? When you changed your hand. Master Rebuilder is cancel a log trap or a broken bridge trap. So shouldn't that have been a Buzzsaw instead?
Yeah, so it's kind of not the most intuitive
Mm,
alignment of powers to what they do. They just kind of named abilities that match the character,
yeah.
but it didn't quite match the effect. So because that's a minor gripe
And
there.
then I feel that it was a lost opportunity to not provide solo rules for this game. You already tell players to have neutral players to fill up the six. You already have a self-working engine that challenges the race. So I don't see why they could not have come up with a third set of rules to act as the solo player's main opponent, other than the neutrals and the like.
Yeah, I mean, and even for the solo player, it could be as simple as maybe you set a round limit, like
Mm.
you have to win the race in a certain number of turns,
Mhm.
versus just winning the race or something like that.
Mhm. Or it could even be just draw the top card and play it as if it were the player, and then apply it
Yeah, more
to a
more
special opponent.
more automata rules
Yeah. So
for the characters, things like that. I realized I misspoke about Dick Dastardly. He relies on the top card of the discard pile.
mm,
Not you don't draw another one.
yeah.
Just someone's gonna point it out sooner or later, so I'm just letting you know. Okay.
So Mitch shares. Where's Miss Mina? She loves this game. She was the reason we got
Yeah,
introduced
yeah.
to the
It
game.
was her copy that got me very jealous and like, oh
Mm.
my god, like if and then we figured we're never gonna get it because like, we missed like the pre-orders for it and
Mm-mm.
stuff. And then Toby found one and then like, okay, yes, I guiltily want this game. I mainly want it for the figures because they're so cute. Um I mean like yeah, again, I have the handbook. So um it's totally fun. So that alone kind of gives a lot of value to the game. And then it's a pretty fun, quick in betweener. I've been meaning to wanted to gear up to like playing a tournament, playing the tournament rules, the championship rules, and then
Mhm.
see how that goes. Because then it's gonna feel like a bit more serious game and kind of try to rank. Does the game feel random to some degree because you are dealing with a hand of cards, but it's
Yes.
not as random as a dice roller. There is some degree of strategy because you probably can at least get two moves per round because you
Mhm.
have your random move as the first one, the random discard, and then you'll have one more card which needs to match at least one terrain. And if you play your cards right, then you're moving at least two spots per turn, and that can be pretty satisfying. If you get to all three, then sure. And then again, you can reset your powers um, to do stuff. Um, yeah, so at least it's in that sense, it's still a pretty fun game.
Mhm. There's no player elimination, so everyone can join all the way till the end. Hey, Mina's here. Hey, Mina.
Yay!
Um,
It's your
and
fault we have this game. Okay,
and I can't remember. Was there a soundtrack we play while playing this?
not really. There's not a distinct. I mean, if you actually go back to the original Wacky Races cartoon, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of music. It was
Mhm.
car sounds, and then mostly the hijinks of like if the anthill mob are going to do their special power, which for some reason it's faster for them to lift the car and run together, and that's a thing. Um, I think other things I wish also is that we had more unique tiles for the terrain.
Mm.
There are a couple quote unquote advanced styles, and then the game will let you shuffle in like one. You have like one at the midway point, and then one towards the end. And I kind of wanted there to be more of those
Mm.
for unique interactions. But there aren't, and I understand that it's to keep the play level at a certain
Yeah.
difficulty for everyone. It's very kid related.
So if you're looking for serious racing games or tactical racing games like Formula De or what was that biking game one which we played with Josh? You remember that one?
I didn't get to play it, but we see it on Shut Up and Sit Down all the time.
Oh, I got to play it with Flip and
Flam
Josh.
Rouge.
Yes. Then go for those.
Because Josh owns almost every Shut Up and Sit Down feature
Because
game.
this wouldn't be that game.
Yeah, this is not that game.
But if you're looking for a game that will just be quirky fun, play it with up to 6 other friends.
Well, up to 5 other friends.
5?
Because-
6 neutral plus dictator.
No, it's 6. But if you're saying other, counting yourself, then it would be 5 other.
Oh.
I'm just yeah. I'm gonna okay. And then yeah, Mitch asks, do you have a favorite character? Admittedly, because the player powers are not that distinct, then you really just play for aesthetics. Like as a kid, I like the professor, but his vehicle makes no sense. But it's because it was their version of a transforming car that it has elements of a boat and a plane and a bicycle and like all these things. So he could always like reconfigure the car into something that he would like to do. I also had an odd sweet spot for the anthill mob, mainly not because of wacky races, but because of the Penelope Pit Stop cartoon,
Mm-hmm.
where they were like always trying to rescue her from the claw, and none of you may understand what I'm talking about, but this is a thing. Um, of course, Toby likes the horror one.
It's nice. But I also have a soft spot for these guys.
Of course, you do. Who
But
are like proto Captain Caveman
Yeah.
figures.
They totally um, hit a certain spot in my memory, which is totally not who they are.
Yeah, because it's not Captain Caveman, but it looks a lot like them. And then there's silly things like Red Max invented a car that is a plane that does not fly much in the race. But these are the conceits of the game of the show, so you just work with it. Yeah, so is there of course minus like favorite character is Muttley. Yes, but he is not playable.
Yeah.
But he is right there sitting beside Dick Dastardly. So at least he's in the game.
And you'll have at least one friend trying to do the Muttley laugh
Mhm.
while you're playing the game. I won't.
This is the moment of silence of us contemplating if we want to try to make the sound on the show, and I guess the answer is no. Okay. We normally try to talk about strategy. Do you have strategy for the wacky races?
Make sure you hit others when you can.
Yeah, my general is like don't be afraid to use your player powers.
Mhm.
At the minimum, using the basic game, the midway point is a unique tile, which is the gas station, which lets you reset at least one of your powers.
Mhm.
So if you haven't used any of your powers in the first half of the race, it's a waste
Mhm.
because you're already gonna get a guaranteed reset.
Don't rush ahead because again, if someone's supposed to go to a spot and you're there, they jump ahead of you. So stay close, creep alongside everyone. But then when you have a line of them, that's when you time it to land here, so you end up jumping there.
But remember, first player deals with the traps that Dick Dastardly is placing.
Mhm.
And players have some degree of control over where Dick Dastardly will be because he will jump to the last card you discard for the round.
Mhm.
So your last action is also Dick Dastardly's action, and more often than not, because he skips terrain, he will come ahead, and you might be able to use that to your advantage to set a trap for the player who is in the lead.
Yes.
So think about your discards very carefully. And then what else? And then I figure in your last leg, don't be afraid to use all, to really maximize your
Mm.
powers, because that's it. That's the last hurrah. There
Mm.
are some powers that are crazy dangerous in the last few spots because it will maybe let you move two, three
Yes.
tiles at a time. And as you're all clustered together, it may actually be one of the players in last place that zoom ahead at the very end.
Pay attention to the terrain that you have a bonus in. There are some characters who
Mm.
move better in certain terrains or don't even need certain cards for certain terrains. Because if you pay attention to where those are in the map, you can use that to your advantage.
And it goes without saying that don't ignore the advanced building, advanced style, whatever that will
Mm.
be in the second half of the race.
Yeah.
There are a couple of variations there, so that to make the game unique. That I think like five total advanced styles, and then you mix one into the deck. Um, Understand what that one is and what it does, so that you can potentially make the most of it when you finally hit that spot later on.
And lastly, the gas station. Keep in mind that the gas station, which unexhausts one of the face down powers, it only happens once the last racer has reached it.
Oh yeah, it's not automatic. Like if you hit the gas station first, it's a weird
Mhm.
like everybody has to wait for everybody.
But use that to your advantage. You might zoom ahead, you're dealing with the traps, but then see and keep watching the last player to sort of see when that reset will happen. And that might give you the edge you needed.
Yeah, I mean always assume other players are gonna move 1 to 2 spots. Well, around 2 spots, and that will determine the ebb and flow of your game. Um, but yeah, so that's our wacky races, the board game discussion. Um, Cute overall. It's not the most strategic game you're ever gonna own, but that is not why you buy games like this. You buy them because you love the cartoon, and you now want to be able to have like the Red Baron and all these things. We already said the things we wished were there to make this even more special. So yeah, hey
Would you
Simon,
paint the figures?
not me personally because I have zero artistic skills whatsoever. But I can imagine if there were people who could paint well, then totally go for it. I mean, Peter Perfect's car deserves a proper paint job. Because here then you see like sorry, it's hard to tell, but like it's like blue rimmed with a yellow back. It's
Mhm.
like it he had like it was really a distinct primary color thing with yes majority of the body being white, but it still needs um that extra Peter Perfect flair.
Mhm.
And then even things like Penelope Pitstop's vehicle really should have more of these yellow accents, and to stress the fact that her headlights are eyes. We need that.
Right,
We
right.
totally need that for to really dress it up.
Mhm.
So if you have the ability to paint, go ahead, paint it for us, and share your photos online. We'd love to see what you come up with. I mean, come on, this 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 has so many things going on. It needs color. And there's like little crazy things like if you stare into what's this, the anthill mob car. It's funny because like in the show, they have like several rows of seats and they're not necessarily sitting in those rows. They are all clustered like with the driver. They're all in that front seat crammed in, but that's very it's very in line with the cartoon. So again, there's like so many details that you can enjoy with the figures alone, and I get lost kind of staring at it and then thinking about the cartoon and then thinking about
Mhm.
that. So fun stuff. Anything else to be?
I guess that's it. So that is our. Really don't know if we should call these reviews, but that's our episode on the
That's our
wacky races.
discussion. That's our yeah. Okay.
Definitely something that we did not realize but enjoy as much as we would. Um, for the franchise games we've had, this was a hit. Jaws was a hit.
Because okay, as a franchise game, because unique rule set, it really fits the what you feel of the show. And I feel like playing around the wacky races feels like you're living the cartoon. As simplistic as it could be for like your full on serious gamer, I think it captures the feel of the show nicely. So Jaws is the same way. It doesn't have that stress and tension
Mhm.
of the movie. Um, and then you have things like Firefly wasn't terrible. but it captured a very particular aspect of the show, which is a lot of traveling and doing jobs.
Mm.
Uh, the Expanse one was okay, but it didn't quite. It keeps you on the macro level and not like deep in on the character
Mm.
level, which actually is where the show can be pretty strong. And then the list goes on and on. So this is not bad for a genre thing. Mina mentioned she bought the deluxe and it's painted, but a bit disappointed because the colors are not as bright as she thought they would be. So yeah, maybe commission an artist instead. Support someone who likes painting these things.
Mitch recommends the term discussion.
Yeah, that's as close we get. Although, unlike when I post this on Board Game Geek, there's no discussion, so I post review because it's as close we get. And we do generally like we do talk about a review aspect. It's just that we tend to like almost every game in our collection. Like, there's a reason why we got it and why it's still in the collection, and
Yes.
no regrets. Only regrets is not having enough space. Yeah, so we have another episode on Thursday. We'll also be talking about a game topic. In this case, it'll be an RPG one. We're talking about King Arthur Pendragon,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe particularly the Great Pendragon campaign, as part of that game system. So do check it out. And then, like I said, oh my gosh, a whole bunch of board games arrived this week. So I don't know if we're gonna find the time to play them. There are so many like new escape room style games that Toby keeps finding. One is based on sound. And I thought we were already like crazy when we had Nyctophobia, which is the game you play blind. But now we have something for sound specifically. That sounds cool. Um, and then even expansions, like we have a bunch of Firefly expansions because
Yes.
Toby went crazy. And then we have the Rise of X expansion. And then we have the new Micro Macro City, Crime City,
Which surprisingly was far bigger than we expected it to be.
which means that our table probably can't accommodate
Yeah.
the thing when it's laid
We'll
out.
have to play it on the floor or something.
Mitch and Mina, of course, miss gaming. We miss gaming with you too. And then I think, hey, I think we're reaching a point where maybe we'll be comfortable enough to map something out.
And to the remainder of you viewers, because we're suddenly really high, thank you for catching the show. So, but we are just about to end the episode for now.
Yep. All right. So, as always, for questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobino Shade RG Sunico.
You could also check out our blog, badaypray.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us. Look at all that memes.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know who is your favorite wacky racer and why does everybody love Muttley? No, because he's funny.
Because of his snicker.
It's the snicker. No,
I can't do it.
no,
I
It's
can't
okay. It's like I kudos to the voice artist who did that for years because that is hard on the throat.
Although I think I do that sometimes when I'm drunk and I'm laughing.
No comment. So, and be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. You're gonna drop those again. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and this is Baday Pride. Good night, everyone. Stay safe.